Kieran, what are the challenges to safety technology adoption in the construction industry?
There are quite a few, and
Yeah,
I think we can be blunt with the first one.
go.
Safety doesn't make anybody any money. So the question is always, who pays for this? Now, yes, it's like insurance. If something does go wrong, it becomes very expensive and incredibly difficult for all involved. But it is a cost center, not a revenue generator. The other considerations are, we've talked about the subcontractor model a lot.
Yes.
It's a lot easier if you've got the same machine on the same site, the same operators and crew for 20 years running around a yard. That is not what happens in construction.
No.
So how does a subcontractor who's got a fleet of 100 vehicles, who only puts a digger on site for a week, stomach the cost of any system going onto their machine if they can't amortize the cost over multiple projects? And this is a big challenge. Safety has to be led by the big contractors and the clients.
Yep.
There needs to be a ring-fenced budget for safety and innovation and doing something differently. Because unless the cost of something is built into the budget, it will not get up. So if you come to a project that's already started and you say, whatever the cost is, it's X dollars, they say, well, it's not in my budget already, so I can't afford it. So you need to get it into the budgets to start off with, which means you've got cycles of sort of 2-3 year major projects before it comes in. So you're relying on, in the early days, ring-fence budgets of safety and innovation to start the introduction, so that 2 or 3 years later it can be introduced. So my view is the only way safety gets introduced into these projects is through mandates by the tier ones and the clients. And ultimately it is the client who pays for it. So the question is, what's in it for me as the individual? You have to be able to answer that question. So the operator has to say, I can see the benefit in this because I don't want to run my colleague over. Somebody has to be looking at the data. So there has to be a safety person on site or somewhere saying, I see the value in this. I want to look at this data. I want to do something with it. The client has to say, I see the value in this because our sites are safer. We can understand our near misses. We can implement changes so that we don't have a potential accident. Construction is very difficult because of this episodic nature of the works that we do and the supply chain that we have. What we've decided to do is the systems that we have are relatively inexpensive. They are by no means cheap. It is new technology. But we offer, wiring kits and things like that. So you can wire up a machine, but you don't have the expensive bit plugged in until it's required. So there are things like that we can do, but it sort of mimics the introduction of, machine control systems from, 10, 15, 20 years ago, where they're sort of $100,000 a pop for grade control. Yep. That is now the expectation, and that is basically you can't get on site without them. So over the next decade, that's probably what will eventually end up happening.
Yeah. So how do you then influence this mind shift within the leaders in the safety, in the construction industry when it comes to safety? You said the driver operator has to care. That's all I heard, right? The manager has to care. The construction company has to care. The client has to care. Everybody has to care. Yes. Yeah. How do we get to that mind shift change within the construction industry specifically?
So I think everybody understands the problem.
Yep.
There are lots of potential avenues. The hierarchy of control says that we should eliminate people in vehicles being close to each other anyway.
Yep.
And I fully support that. That is, the bottom of your pyramid.
Yep.
The first thing I would say is this is new technology, and I don't think people are even aware that really it exists and the capabilities of it. So the first thing is getting out there and educating people that this actually exists. But the real challenge, exactly, go to events, explain it, play with it. It's once you get your hands on it, you can understand what it's doing. And what very quickly happens is people go, I can see how this works, but actually, could you also do this with it?
Yeah.
Could you do this? Because I said all the other applications that we've talked about already. And that's the way to do it. But it is a challenge because the margins and risk profile of construction in particular, low margins, high risk, there needs to be somebody brave, and there are those companies. So in Australia, we're working with some great companies. Mining is leading the way. We've got materials companies who are feeding into construction. We're very fortunate to be spun off from Langerock. So Langerock has a lot of systems pioneering this, and people are gradually accepting that being run over at work is no longer acceptable. So what are we going to do about it? And if you can make it easy, and that is the critical thing, every system that comes in, somebody has to do something. Somebody has to own it. Somebody, it's another job for somebody.
Yeah.
Can you just take care of it? So where we will ultimately be going is we want this being built into machines so that you just buy your next loader and it has the system inbuilt.
Yeah, it just becomes like your GPS now. GPS didn't exist
Exactly.
5 years ago, and today every car has an inbuilt GPS.
Yeah, so a hire company used to have to pay $10 a week for the GPS.
Yeah.
Now it comes as part of the machine.
Yeah.
So that's where eventually this will go. But we're in that early phase of educating people, making people aware that this is now available, and understanding what is capable and what the data is that you can get out of it, so that in 10 years' time, it's sort of a no-brainer.
Yeah, mate, interesting. I'm sure you'll succeed in your initiatives, man. This is some cool shit you're working on. I really think it's cool. Yeah, with some interesting challenges, but it's really cool.